So we just saw another 3 million people file for unemployment in this past week, bringing the total number to over 36.5 million. Completely insane. If you look at this chart here, you can see obviously there are always some people who were filing for unemployment during, even before this crisis, but you can see at the start of this crisis completely shooting up to over 3 million a week and then bringing it in here over 7 or nearly 7 million a week. And now the numbers have been declining a little bit. Part of that is because we are starting to see Congress do something. We've seen them pump in trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars into the economy. You'd think that would do something. Now, I've talked on this channel. I don't necessarily think that what Congress did was was not sufficient, but B, it also wasn't organized particularly well. We saw the big banks taking a major role in the coronavirus response that Congress initiated. We saw them snatching up stimulus checks, and we also saw them administering small business loans, and we saw big banks preferencing high dollar small businesses as opposed to low dollar small businesses in the administration of our money, of our taxpayer money. They were preferencing their high dollar clients. So, it was a mess the way it was administered. And also they put a cap on the small business loan. I thought that was a mistake. And so, the response so far hasn't been particularly good. And so we are starting to get worried that this crisis is just going to exacerbate and expand issues with inequality. We just saw the Fed come out a few days ago, maybe it was 2 days ago or so. He said that basically they've been analyzing the data, they've been looking at the numbers, and one striking statistic which he came out with was that of the households making under $40,000 a year, 40% of those saw a job or an income source lost in that household. So lower income households being hit significantly, quite significantly. And comparatively speaking, when you look at those making over $100,000 a year, only 13% of those households saw a job loss. So this is looking like a situation where inequality is likely to increase. So now we have seen Joe Biden starting to initiate some kind of response. At the beginning of this thing, he was saying, look, I'm just going to leave it up to Congress. I'm going to leave it up to legislators to decide what the Democratic response is going to be. I'm not going to provide an alternative because I don't want to get in the way. I don't want to interfere with the business of passing laws. He started to change his mind on this. He's seen some polling, I guess. Actually, we saw some leak stuff saying that he is interested now in presenting an alternative. And this seems to be the first thing that we're starting to see out of this. He's saying now that he is in favor of canceling rent and mortgage payments, not paid later, but forgiveness. Now, this is a really, really good thing for a number of reasons. The first and most obvious of which being, look, people are really, really struggling. I mean, you just heard those numbers. You just saw those numbers there. People are really, really struggling now, and a lot of people can't pay rent. We saw at the beginning of April, the first week of April, nearly 30% of renters were not able to make rent on the first week of April. So, and that was back then. That was over a month ago. Things have gotten significantly worse since then, economically speaking. So, it is a situation where this is really, really good and really, really important for renters so that they are able to, not have that extra stress in their life during this time of crisis. But it's also an issue when it comes to, inequality and control of the economy, because what we don't want is big banks to take a larger and larger share in the economy, because right now, big banks stand to gain a whole bunch of different property assets from landlords who maybe only own 3 or 4, maybe 5 different households, different units, and then are renting it out to various people. Those people are standing to get wiped out. Those small landlords are really in a lot of trouble, because in those instances, if only one person isn't able to make rent, they might not be able to make their payments on those different mortgages, etc. And then those properties could get possessed by the big banks. And that's a situation which we don't want to see. Now, you guys know I'm more so on the left. So the whole landlord thing, I think we can rearrange that. I think we can rethink that. However, in this particular instance, for dealing with this particular crisis, guys, we don't want the big banks to take a larger share. We don't want the big banks to taking more and more control of the economy. And so this rent forgiveness, mortgage forgiveness stuff is a really good idea. Not paid later, but forgiven, as Joe Biden put it. Now, what we did see from Donald Trump in the White House, they have been pushing some kind of alternative, some kind of response in terms of rent payments, but for the most part, they've said that they're leaving it up to the states to decide. So the states are deciding in their own way how they're going to be handling this. Some states are doing one thing, some states are doing another thing. Joe Biden presenting an alternative Democratic vision is a really, really good idea, because then it does put pressure on Congress, the Democrats in Congress, to go go more so that way, and hopefully Joe Biden is, more so on the left in terms of the positions, because we haven't seen Congress pushing for, really seriously pushing for a rent forgiveness, rent forgiveness thing. So he's also, by the way, proposing a $15,000 tax credit for first-time home buyers. So we are starting to see the first works, the first pieces of a Joe Biden economic coronavirus response. And this is particularly important when it comes to the general election, because one of the things that we've started to see when we look at polling is that Donald Trump is losing to Joe Biden when it comes to how they think or like who they think would handle the coronavirus response better. People think that Joe Biden would handle it better. However, Joe Biden is losing to Donald Trump when it comes to who they think could handle the economic recovery better. This is part of the reason why we're starting to see Donald Trump push for a reopening, because he's making a serious gamble. The campaign is starting to make a serious gamble that since voters trust Donald Trump better on economic recovery, if we can change the messaging, change the situation to, look, we're trying to recover economically from this crisis, then the gamble is that the sort of the polls will change and it'll increase Donald Trump's approval rating. That's the gamble that the Trump campaign is making, and Joe Biden is therefore trying to sort of preempt that, sort of push back against that by providing an economic alternative. So this is something that's good. This is something that we're going to want to see. We're going to have to see if it's good enough. Is it going to be sufficient? I don't know. Now, one of the major things that we're going to have to follow when it comes to this debate is whether or not Mitch McConnell allows for an infrastructure investment. Donald Trump is saying that he is interested in a major infrastructure investment during this crisis, and that it could come with possibly a kind of jobs guarantee. We're going to have to see whether or not that goes through, because that's what Donald Trump is saying he wants, but Mitch McConnell and a number of the deficit hawks in Congress are opposing that vision. So Mitch McConnell is fighting against Donald Trump on this issue, saying, no, that's too much, that's too crazy, and the Democrats are on board with it, right? So if Mitch McConnell ends up saying, all right, it's likely something that actually could happen, that actually could go through. So we're going to have to see how that plays out. We're going to have to see how that goes out, because if Donald Trump provides a serious economic kind of infrastructure package, I do think that that could be a major threat to Joe Biden when it comes to, the general election, right? Like voters could see that and think, okay, Donald Trump is doing a good job handling the economic recovery. And so, they might, right, like Joe Biden might lose on that account. So we're going to have to see how that plays out. We're going to have to see what Mitch McConnell does, ironically, in terms of how voters are going to perceive Donald Trump. So that's going to be the thing that we're going to have to watch. That's going to be the thing that we're going to have to follow. Now, the other thing I want to show you when it comes to this video here is the stock market. So, even though we just saw today 3 million new people file for unemployment, stock market on the way up. Stock market went up today. This is just the daily reporting for the stock market going up today. Now, there's a debate. I mean, if you go online, the consensus that most people online are saying is that the reason why the stock market is going up is because, investors have a sort of, they expect that the economy is going to recover, and so they think that they can make gains. Maybe that's what's happening, but actually, if you look at the economic literature right now, it's pretty mixed. Even economists aren't particularly sure why the stock market is going up during this crisis, during times when jobs keep going down, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to have to see. I mean, the economic debate is ongoing. I mean, if it seems like on Twitter, online, people seem to know exactly why, but then the actual experts, the actual economists are not sure. They don't know why. So it's unclear why it's happening, but what is clear is that the stock market is clearly not representing what's going on Main Street. Wall Street is not reflecting Main Street, and maybe that's surprising to you. It's not surprising to me, but that's one thing that we are seeing out of this thing. So anyway, I just wanted to update you guys on that thing. You can on this stuff. If you want to sort of tell me what you think about this, you can let me know down in the comment section. But for now, if you did like this video, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like button and consider subscribing. Thanks.